On March 10, 1928, 9-year-old Walter Collins was on his way to the cinema. When Walter never came home later that day, his mother, Christine Collins, started to worry. The LA Police Department investigated hundreds of possible leads, but came up with nothing. Christine's husband was an inmate at Folsom Prison for bank robbery, and at first the police believed that enemies of her husband planned the kidnapping. But it wasn't that. News outlets got wind of the story, and the police department was starting to feel the pressure from the public to solve the case. The people started to question the capabilities of the LA Police Department. Then 5 months later, in DeKalb, Illinois, he was found. Christine Collins was contacted and she paid to have Walter brought back home to LA. With all the bad press the police had been getting because of their failure to solve the case, they arranged a public meeting. A mother reuniting with her missing son would give the newspaper something good to write about and redeem the police department's bad image. But as soon as Christine Collins saw the child, the first thing she said was, "I do not think that is my boy." And to be honest, I can see that they are completely two different people. Different ears, their heads are shaped differently, different mouths. You would think that a mother would know who her own son is. Unbelievably, Police Captain J.J. Jones told her to try the boy out. The police convinced her that Walter's 5-month ordeal was enough to change him, so he may not look or act like she remembered. 3 weeks later, however, she was still convinced that the child they gave her was not her son. Jones, who was worried that this would cause an even bigger embarrassment for the police department, had Collins admitted to the LA Hospital psychiatric ward. While Collins was there, Jones interviewed Walter, who turned out to not be Walter, but Arthur Hutchins Jr., a 12-year-old runaway. Arthur wanted to get to Hollywood and thought that by impersonating Walter, he would get his chance. Collins was released from the psychiatric ward, but sadly faced a bigger issue. Where was her son? 2 other boys went missing on May 16. They were from Pomona, 10-year-old Nelson Winslow and his 12-year-old brother Lewis. They were missing for quite some time, and then their family received a small note. It was written on a torn page of a book from the Pomona Public Library. According to the note, they went to Mexico to find gold. The local police informed the border to be on the lookout for the 2 boys, but no one saw them. Since the Winslows lived roughly 30 miles from where Walter was taken, it was assumed that both cases were completely unrelated. They soon found out that they were connected by this man, Gordon Northcott. Originally from Canada, Gordon moved to LA in 1924 with his parents, and with his father's help, built himself a little chicken farm. It was this chicken farm that Gordon used as an excuse to get his nephew, 13-year-old Sanford Clark, to stay with him. Sanford was under the impression that Gordon wanted his help to run the farm. Gordon, however, had different plans. Sanford wasn't there long before Gordon started to abuse him, mentally, physically, and sexually. Northcott was forcing Sanford to send letters back home, letting his family know that he was all right. Jessie, Sanford's older sister, thought the letters seemed odd. Jessie went to visit the ranch just to make sure her brother was indeed all right. After a few days on the ranch, Jessie had to leave as she was terrified of Northcott and of what she discovered. She went back to Canada and went to the American consulate immediately, who then had the LA police look into the situation. Once the police arrived, they learned that Northcott, along with his mother, Sarah, had fled to Canada. They interviewed Sanford and he told them everything. He told the police that Gordon would drive up to kids and tell them their parents were in a horrible accident, and he was sent to get them. He described to them how Gordon would then lock the kids up in the chicken coop to torture and abuse, then ending with the child being murdered, dipped in lime, and then buried. Sanford also told the police that Gordon would force him to participate in the torture and the killings. Northcott and his mother were captured in British Columbia on September 19, 1928, but it would take a couple months before they would be extradited back to the US. In the meantime, the police investigated the chicken farm. Thanks to Sanford, the police were able to locate 3 shallow graves, but they were only able to find some bone fragments, hair, and a few fingers. They discovered that before Northcott and his mother had run to Canada, they dug up the bodies and buried them out in the desert. The remains have never been found. Some of the bone fragments had quicklime residue, which backed up Sanford's story. The police also found an axe with blood on it, chicken blood, as well as human blood, and a Boy Scout uniform. Louis Winslow was a Boy Scout. Gordon Northcott had confessed to killing 5 boys, but recanted almost immediately. His mother did the same. In court, Gordon thought of himself smarter than his lawyers, so he fired his counsel and represented himself. He failed miserably. In the end, Gordon was found guilty of 3 murders: the 2 Winslow boys, and a Mexican boy who was found on the side of the road back in February, headless. The police assumed his name was Alvin Gothea. Gordon even signed a confession for that one. He was sentenced to death by hanging. It is believed, however, that he has likely killed around 20 boys. Before his sentence was carried out, the Winslow boys' father went to the jail that housed Gordon. With a group of men, he demanded that Gordon be given to them. The police were able to calm them down, and they eventually went home. Northcott also met with Christine Collins. She firmly believed that her son Walter was still alive. Northcott, although at first admitting to killing her son, told Collins in their last meeting he didn't kill Walter, that he was in fact innocent of everything, and Christine Collins believed him. But then Northcott's mother, Louise, admitted to be the one responsible for Walter's death. She told a story of how she discovered Walter locked in one of the chicken coops. Afraid for her son, since Walter saw his face and could identify him if he ever escaped, decided to silence poor Walter. She forced Sanford and Gordon to help with the savage murder. Her reasoning was that if they were all involved, Sanford wouldn't tell the police about it, as telling the police would implicate him. So one night, all 3 of them went into the chicken coop while Walter was asleep and took turns bludgeoning him to death. She received a life sentence but was paroled after only serving 12 years. Arthur Hutchins, the Walter imposter, died of a blood clot in 1954. He was 38. Christine Collins was finally able to get her answer on what really happened to her son Walter. She sued Police Captain Jones for having her locked up in the psychiatric ward. Even though she won the case, she never saw any money. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that like button and then subscribe. Once again, my name is Rick, and I'll see you next time on Dissecting Murder.